Wake back to bed is one of the most famous and most effective lucid dreaming induction techniques. So I'm going to teach it to you today. But after I teach the standard version, I'll share my adapted version as well. I noticed that for clients, this is a little bit easier to use, but works just as well. So it might be worth a try for you as well. Wake back to bed has two important aspects. Can you guess what they are? Number one, waking up. Number two, going back to bed. So let's unpack the details of this technique and how it works and why it works and help you build, a version for yourself that's going to work really well. Let's start with the waking up bit. And the big questions here are when, how long, and how awake. And I think just first it's important to note that for all lucid dreaming practices, but especially for something like this which involves sleep disruption, they are personalized. You will need to kind of play around and experiment and find what works for you. So I'll share some different parameters and then you know yourself, put it together in a way that makes sense to you. Okay, so with that said, when do you want to wake up to do wake back to bed? Well, you want to make sure you're waking up after you've had most of your deep sleep. Lucid dreaming happens in REM, which happens towards the end of the night. So you're going to want to give yourself about 3 sleep cycles worth of peace. They're about 90 minutes each, so about 4.5 to 5 hours at the front end. So if you go to bed at like 10 p.m., you're probably going to want to wake up at around 2:30, 3 a.m. in the morning. Now this sort of way of doing it works well if you're someone who struggles to fall back to sleep. But if you're someone who can really nap, like if you're someone who can wake up at 7 o'clock and go straight back to sleep, then you can probably push it forward a bit. So you could wake up maybe 2 hours before your normal wake up time or even less. The trick here is to wake up at a period where you're going to go into REM but still be able to fall back asleep. Now, for how long do you want to wake up? The magical question. Again, this is going to depend on how active your mind is. The standard recommendation is between 20 to 60 minutes. And again, this is going to depend how quickly you wake up, how hard it is for you to fall back asleep. So if I were you, I would err on the 20-minute range first. And if you find that after 20 minutes, you just knock right back out and you didn't get any lucidity, then work it up a little bit, right? I know for me, this is why I did the adapted version. My adapted version, it's like 5 to 10 minutes, and I'll tell you why later. Because the next question is, how awake do you want to be? Before we dive into that, make sure to subscribe to my channel so you stay up to date and in touch as I release new lucid dreaming trainings. As for how awake you want to be during wake back to bed, this is a sweet spot. Remember that lucid dreaming is a hybrid brain state, right? So the part of your mind that normally goes to sleep, we want to kind of activate that enough so that when you go into the dream, you're more likely to recognize you're dreaming. But you don't want to agitate yourself that you can't go back to sleep. So here, it's really finding that sweet spot between bringing on a little bit of alertness without kind of agitating the body so it can't go back to sleep. So what's really important is no screens, no devices, nothing that's going to wake you up with blue light. You can do some gentle meditation, some journaling, if you do mantras, anything that's going to kind of keep you in a beautiful, relaxed state, but maybe just gently help your mind come back online. And when you're doing this, you can just sit in bed. I like to sit in bed and do my meditations and my work there. And I kind of keep one foot almost in the sleep lands and then one part kind of waking up. So you'll kind of experiment with that and find what works for you. But again, it's that sweet balance. Now that's the waking up bit. What about the back to bed? Once you've found that sweet spot, what you want to do is kind of land beautifully back into sleep and dream. So how you're going to do this is you are going to turn off all your lights. I use a little flameless candle next to my bed, so it's a beautiful warm light. It's easy to turn off, but if you forget, there's no danger. Try to turn off my little flameless candle. And then for me personally, I like to lie a little bit propped up by pillows. It kind of creates a little bit more alertness. For some people, they take the lion posture, which is the Tibetan Buddhist posture, lying on your right side with your knees up, closing off your right nostril, breathing in through the left. Whatever you find helps you. But the idea is to try not just kind of conk out, but try enter into sleep with a little bit of intentionality. So I use at this point a lucidity induction phrase. So it might be, I recognize my dreams as I am dreaming. Or it might be whatever my dream mission is. I summon my money shadow. Whatever it is, but a little bit of focus, a little bit of intentionality. So as you're dropping back into sleep, you're bringing the wakefulness you cultivated back into the space with you. Now, if you end up in a situation where you're struggling to fall back asleep, which happens to the best of us, try the 4-7-8 breathing. This is a technique designed to really help you relax, and it works really well. It's just breathing in 4 seconds, holding for 7 seconds, breathing out for 8 seconds. In for 4, holding for 7, out for 8. And if you do, a couple minute cycles of that, you'll notice your body just starts to relax again and you'll be able to go back to sleep. So sometimes we overshoot. I certainly have, and it's a really good technique when we do. Okay, so now for my personal adapted version. This is what I call the baby wake back to bed, and I just found that my mind is so active that even the 20-minute version of the wake back to bed just kept me up. And I find a lot of my clients are similarly very active-minded. Maybe you are too. So if you are someone who tends to wake up pretty quickly, try this one instead. When I do the wake back to bed, the normal one, you sort of set an alarm. You try to sort of set an alarm 4.5 hours in to wake yourself up. With this, I'm actually working with my natural wake-up cycles. I'll take like a big glass of water before I go to bed, and then whenever I naturally wake up in the night, to go to the bathroom or just naturally, that's when I start to do my baby wake back to bed. And what I'll do is I'll just prop myself up in bed, I'll turn on my little flameless candle, and then I do some eyes open meditation. And if you haven't tried this before, it's really simple. Just sit and just take a few really deep breaths in, deep breaths out. And then as you're looking, just really soften your gaze. You don't have to stare at something. Almost like see if you can look out of your peripheral vision and just soften your gaze. And then as you're doing that and breathing, I ask myself the question in my mind, what state am I in? Which state am I in? Am I in the waking state? Am I in the dreaming state? And I just start to inquire very gently. So eyes open, deep breathing, what state am I in? What state am I in? What state am I in? And I do this for 3 to 5 minutes. Then I'll sort of maybe do a little review of my dream plan and just look it over and see, okay, what am I doing tonight? And then I'll go back to bed. So it's usually 5 to 10 minutes max. And again, when I go back to bed, I do seat myself up. So I'll prop myself up a little bit, not like sitting, but kind of like a 45-degree angle. And then I'll work with the lucid induction phrase, am I dreaming yet? Am I dreaming yet? Am I dreaming yet? And I hold it gently as I go in, saying it about 20 times, am I dreaming yet? Am I dreaming yet? And then that brings me into the REM and the dream space, really aware and kind of awake, but my body is really ready to go back to sleep. So I found that works just as well as a full-on back to bed. If you're someone who kind of just conks out, you might need to use the longer version, but experiment. Create these processes according to what works for you. Try the long version, try my adapted version, and if you try mine, please do let me know if it works.